What is going on in the world? Well, African leaders are becoming their own boss, finally, and I am here for it. What up, guys? My name is Sa Ra Garvey. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe as we get into this one. Now, finally, there are some African leaders who are growing some cojones. They are growing some testicles, they're growing some balls, and they are actually saying what is on their hearts and minds. Let's have a listen.
More than 20 African nations are expected to attend the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum that starts today in Russia. We're going to talk more about that in a minute. But first, watch Kenyan President William Samoei Ruto speaking to Parliament this week, announcing that Kenya will start trading in local currencies within Africa and not the US dollar, as they have been doing for decades. And watch the standing ovation that he receives from this announcement.
So why is it so important that other countries trade within their own currency? Well, if we are just trading in US dollars, what that means is that the US economy keeps itself stable. And so this happened a few years back when you look at what happened in Iraq. Saddam Hussein himself said that he wanted to start trading oil in the euro. Now, all of a sudden, there was a war against Saddam Hussein. You know, you can put your conspiracy theory hat on for that one. But when you take the dollar away, what you do is that you destabilize the American economy. And when you prop up your own currency, you start to stabilize your own economy. Now, I'm of the thought process that it doesn't matter if another country uses their own currency, because you want to have a sovereign, stable country. And this is exactly what Kenya is now doing.
Traders from Djibouti selling to Kenya, or traders from Kenya selling to Djibouti, have to look for US dollars. How is US dollars part of the trade between Djibouti and Kenya? Why? And we are saying that today, Afri-Exim Bank have given us a mechanism where traders in our continent can trade in their goods and services, and the Africa-Exim Bank will settle payments in local currency. That is why Kenya champions the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System that is done by our own institution, the Afri-Exim Bank. Why, members? Why is it necessary for us to buy things from Djibouti and pay in dollars? Why? There is no reason.
Now, as somebody who classes himself as a Pan-African, this makes me very, very happy. I have always said that Africa and African nations, black nations in general, need to take responsibility for their own economies and start to build them up. And it seems as if the president of Kenya, along with 20 other African nations, are starting to do that. What is happening is that America's grip on the world is actually slipping. This is what we are actually watching in real time. We are watching America's grip on the rest of the world having to trade in their currency slipping. Now, what it is for me is that I am going to have to watch, and you are going to have to watch very carefully, what countries now say they don't want to deal in the US dollar. And then we are going to have to watch the American news and see what countries the America starts saying are part of a dictatorship, or they have Africans killing their own people and stuff like that, because it seems to be a modus operandi for America to demonize people who don't want to go by their rules.
And we are not against the US dollar. We just want to trade much more freely. let us pay in US dollars what we are buying from the US. But what we are buying from Djibouti, let's use local currency.
Wow.
I mean, it seems like the simplest thing, right? Why do they have to buy US dollars in order to buy goods? In fact, Clayton and I, we were traveling recently in Egypt, and we were looking at the menu and we said, why does this Lebanese wine, which is close to Egypt, why is this so expensive? It's $50. And they said because of import trades. So Egypt cannot trade freely with Lebanon, which is just next door, or Jordan, or they have no trade agreements that the European Union enjoys, or the United States enjoys, or other blocs enjoy. Africa has been prevented from doing that. Well, now they are going forward with this system. What he mentions here is Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. It's called PAPSS. It runs through a central bank that has been started in Egypt. It's called Afra-Exim Bank. Doesn't roll off the tongue.
Yeah, it doesn't flow. They need to come up with a new name.
Now, it is based in Egypt and is shareholder owned. He says it is African owned, but it is also heavily invested in by China. Take a look. This was from 2012, I believe. No, 2019. Says they were receiving $850 million from Chinese financial institutions. Well, Africa has been enjoying Chinese investment for quite some time. The West will tell you this is dangerous. Africa doesn't know what they're doing. They're saying like, oh, these Africans, they don't understand financial products, really.
Right. You got to be scared of the Chinese because they're going to take over everything. They will own you. They will destroy your country. Meanwhile, isn't that exactly what the West is doing?
Now, this is what has been happening generally for decades. African countries have been seen as less than other countries. The West, America specifically, has been belittling Africa, belittling Africa's economy, belittling Africa's economics, belittling their ways in which they can actually uplift themselves off the bottom of the social economic ladder. Russia and China have come in and they basically said, look, we want to be your equals. We don't want to be your colonizer. Now, do I necessarily believe that? No. Everybody wants something, and Africa being the breadbasket of the world, people are going to want to take advantage of it to some degree. However, China has come in and they said, look, we will build certain things for you, we'll help you. Russia said they'll help them here and there, and African leaders have said to themselves, look, we can either be a slave to the West and what the West wants us to do, or there is a new nation or new nations who actually want to kind of help us and we can have a more reciprocal relationship. And so for me, we have to understand that we have to do things one step at a time. Africa is actually not in a position to be a superpower yet. They don't have a nuclear arsenal. They don't have great armies. They are not in that position. However, they're getting there. And so when I hear that, these African nations have, built a central bank for, their own currencies, it actually makes me quite happy.
And also the West benefits from Chinese investments. But we're telling Africans they don't understand what they're doing. I don't think there's anything more racist than that. Like, sorry, you guys don't understand finance. You don't understand that when you're accepting this debt from China, you're really doing your country wrong. But China has been investing in Africa infrastructure for decades. For example, in the Congo, major roads were shelled and destroyed in 1997 by the Rwanda-Uganda-backed army. China repaired those roads in 2010. Now, why would they do that? Here is how Siddharth Kara explained it in his book called Cobalt Red about cobalt mines in Congo. He says that China's dominance in Africa was established in 2000 when President Jiang Zemin proposed the creation of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation to facilitate Chinese investments in African countries. This relationship was billed as a win-win. The Chinese would build much-needed roads, dams, airports, bridges, mobile networks, and power plants across Africa, and in exchange, China would secure access to vital resources to support its growing economy, and that has continued. These roads were built. We're going to hear from a politician who is going to tell us more about that just in a second. Now, Kara, the author of this book, he thinks that Chinese cooperation may not be the best thing for Africa, but not all African leaders feel that way. Just this week, Zambian politician, I'm sorry, it's going to sound terrible the way it comes out of my mouth, Akende Mamembe Chundama. I believe that you can't, it's not like Western last names where you can just use one name. The name loses its meaning if you don't say it in its entirety. And it's butchered from me, and I apologize. But she spoke in Moscow this week about how the West has been exploiting Africa for centuries, and Africa is now demanding autonomy, and they feel like Russia and China are totally acceptable partners as a means to this end. Watch.
Africa is a hub for natural resources. It has always been for the West. And now Africa has multiple options. Africa doesn't have to succumb to a bad deal that we get from the Western countries. Africa has choice now. Africa now wants to be treated as equals at the table. And now Russia and China offer that to Africa.
Africa now has choice, is what she said. Now, I actually agree. And what you are going to see, or what we are going to see, in my personal opinion, is in the next 10 to 15 to 20 years, Africa is going to change. And the attitude of Africans is going to change. Also, it is going to be a more confident African leader that you see upon the stage. You are going to see a more confident African people, upon the world stage. And I am all for it. Things always change. There's only so long you can keep people down and keep people subjugated. Everything always has a habit of rising, even though it was down. And so I think what we are seeing now is the semi-rebirth of what is going on with African nations and African people. And like I said before, I am here for it. So if you are smart, and I've been looking, if you are smart, you will realize that African economies and African nations are future investments. So with that being said, go and look at Africa. Go and look at the economy. Go and look at the real estate. Go and look at the commerce. Go and look at ways in which you can get invested in a future nation or future nations that are only going to grow their GDP. So I've been looking myself, and so I've been looking into the future, thinking to myself, okay, where is the next place to go? If you don't have an exit strategy within the West, then I would say that you're lacking something. Everybody must have an exit strategy. The West is not going to stay powerful forever, and what I can see is that the West is slowly crumbling from the interior, from the family to the commerce to what's going on with children, the schools, the whole trans rights thing, everything is all crumbling from the interior. So you got to be smart and you got to start thinking, and so start looking to Africa. Africa, it seems, is the future. I have been Sa Ra Garvey. Thank you all for tuning in. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe as we keep asking ourselves what is going on in the world, because it is getting a little bit more crazy and a little bit more interesting. I will catch you on the flip side.